Welcome back to Restaurant to Another World. Anime Review, episode number 2. This one's got to say episodes 3 and 4. Yep, more stuff talking about food in this one. The first episode is, well, talking about two different types of stories. Spaghetti with meat sauce and chocolate parfait. The episode starts up not with the customer, but with Lita just snacking, just basically having spaghetti, one of her staff meals. And this is basically a pasta. Look like it have Alfredo sauce on it, with some vet. So it looks like some meat on it. I'd say it looks like some. It looks like a mix of like chicken and like a few pieces of meat. Looks really good. I personally can't have spaghetti very much because like calories and that stuff. So I don't have pasta very much. It's very rare I do nowadays. I like, let's say, about, if it was like a little 5 years ago, I would normally have pasta at least 2 or 3 times a week. But now, I'm lucky if I get once or twice in a week because I had to trim down my weight in order to basically, be able to live comfortably. So she tries it and she's like, we gotta put this pasta in the menu. She want to call it night pasta. Seriously, night pasta. So, and then right after this, we had the backstory on one of the customers. Yes, a guy who was referred to as the glutton, who would use a lot of these special like spaghetti, like basically special noodles, and then he is great. Apparently, over time, built himself a culinary empire. And then, of course, the mysterious door pops up in the cellar of his warehouse, where, where he proceeds to go through it with a bag of food with his grandson, who's going to take over for him. Kind of like the way it is with the restaurant itself, where the owner actually took over his grandfather. So he orders himself a large plate of spaghetti with meat sauce. Now, this is something I have had before. Basically, the meat is about this big. It uses like tiny little pieces, a whole bunch of stuff. You actually can get this stuff in a can, believe it or not. Yes, you can. So, and of course, the grandson Sirius is like looking around, like, oh, and of course he does point out though, but the fact the stuff, the core is normal there in the world the restaurant comes from, which is basically our world. But to them, basically, it's like very unusual to see this stuff. Excuse me. Yes. So, to the food, of course, he's admiring the furniture, which first customer to do that. Mm-hmm. Yes. Eats it, and it gets so good. And of course, he has to just put some cheese, some secret cheese on it, along with pepper sauce. Yes, pepper sauce. I would definitely put cheese and pasta. That's nothing unusual. But pepper sauce? No, I don't like stuff that spicy. So he's thinking, maybe I should add this stuff to my burger. So he's like, nah, I'm retired anyway. So they walk off. And he comes in like four times, every 4 times. So and Sirius is like, can I go back? He's like, yeah, sure, you can go back, no problem. That's the game. Really interesting segment. Next one involves, this one's about chocolate parfait. Yes, seriously, a chocolate parfait. We start off basically in a flashback. That's a flashback where we see this emperor who basically is an old man. He received a messenger pigeon informing him that his son has gone off to the battle, but his adorable granddaughter is there. And she's like looking at flowers, like, you like it here? It's like, yes. After a while, they go to this particular room where the door to the restaurant pops up, like, this must take your chamber. Want to go inside? And like, oh, don't worry, it's not something. And of course, it's the restaurant. And then we see the flashback. I believe this is the first time, this is the pilot episode. This is the first time we get to see the master's grandfather, the original owner of this restaurant. So she gets a chocolate parfait, and of course he looked like he gets some regular meal. And then we jump ahead like 10 years later, which the girl is now about 15, 16 years old. And there's like a plague going on. There's no cure for it. The maids are obviously worried about the princess. And then the door pops up again. She vaguely remembers it. She goes in, and of course the master himself does remember her when he sees her. Like, oh, you look familiar. Like, you seen me before? He's like, yep, it's It's Wilhelm's granddaughter. Wilhelm was the emperor. He does describe it to Alina later, where he basically made a small country to a big, humongous empire that was very popular. And of course, she had chocolate parfait. And she eats like so good. Then of course she's like, okay, but this time it's for free, but next time you have to pay. And she's like, sure, no problem. She does come back a little bit. She comes back in the very next episode. But yeah, that's pretty much what it was. Really good here. Then of course, well, I'm not sure that was. Then we have in the very next segment, we have omelet rice. Yes. Yeah, omelet rice. And this one is one that, believe it or not, you have Jamie Marceri voicing narration this scene. This one, yes, where it explains about the Lizard Men, which I should point out, this actually is the third series I've actually Lizard Man in. The other two I've seen have been Overlord and Death March Epilepsy. It was like brief, like one episode, but yeah, it's third series I come across that features Lizard Men. And it's something I always feature these guys in type in a isekai series, or at least a isekai type series. This is more like a reverse isekai. So we had this hero build up, and we had this like a period of like like a certain period of time for like 3 years. This guy apparently you see is like a ritual. He bathes, and then he drives himself in the sun. And of course, he pats up dry. Gets prepared for a particular ceremony because they had to go through this door once in a while, whenever the door does show up. And he goes through. He comes with like 3 big bowls and this bag of like takeout stuff. And wondering what the heck is going on. And Alita probably is not the first time she sees it. Probably not the first time she sees Elizabeth. But basically, the way he describes it with these very big bowls is basically like, oh, give me 3 orders of large, give me like order of large omelets. And apparently, it's a ritual for him where he eats the stuff and they describe how awesome it is. And he's like, at the second one, like, so good. And after he finishes, he gives a big bag of money to the master. He gives him the takeout food, and then of course he had this special ritual done by the elder, where he blesses it, and of course everything is this handful chunk for every single person. This apparently can keep them fed for like a week. This one piece of omelet, and of course like there's a festival coming up. Gotta train for that. Yep. And that's that segment. Now, the very next one features elves. Yes. This one features tofu steak. Now, unlike the other stuff, now the omelets, I've had omelets before. Who hasn't had an omelet? The one they describe here, I've never had before. But tofu. Excuse me. This actually is one item that features on the shelf I've never had before. I've never had tofu. For what I've read about it, it is a sweet over in Japan, a very popular sweet. Yes, so focuses on an elf who goes out hunting for some food for lunch. And it also, apparently that day, was the anniversary of her mother's death. Goes out, apparently this is a healing elf, because this particular female elf goes and heals up a particular deer who got injured. And all of a sudden, the door pops up. I believe, from her perspective, this was the first time she's probably seen the door. That, or the fact that maybe the door come here the first time. I don't know. It's not really to explain here. And she goes in, and we see various people we've seen over the course of these episodes. We see the princess from the very last episode of the series, from the chocolate parfait. We see the guy from the fried shrimp, Heinrich, one of the regulars, and Sarah, who is from the mincemeat one. And of course, she's like very things like Mari Barbaric, the way all these food are. And then, of course, she asks Anita about, do you have any food that doesn't have eggs, milk, or meat in it? And she's like, bread. And like, okay. And, of course, Anita explains this to the master. He's like, yeah, I can take care of it, no problem. And basically makes her tofu steak. Anybody thinking the steak, you're like, oh, is this steak? No, it's just tofu. That looks like steak. And of course, there's special sauce on it. Tries it, loves it, and then she sends me back, and of course she does 7 days later. Her father worries about her going out. Like, of course, he wants her while she's out delivering this letter. but she's raised out the restaurant, and that's where the thing ends. 2 really good episodes. Thoroughly enjoyed them, and I can't wait to discuss episodes 5 and 6. But those like have to wait because I gotta do Shaman King today. Yep, Shaman King's gonna be next. Yeah. So, anything to dislike about these episodes per se? I mean, I've described a lot of stuff I like about it. Well, the other thing I don't like about it is they didn't really explain like why these particular areas where these doors show up. Like, a lot of the time these doors show complete at random. And the Lizardmen, the way they describe where their door is that they practically worship the door and they send one person to this door. Where it's like a thing from the gods, the way they describe it. Which I'm like, okay. And of course they have Festival of the Sky. Who the heroes would go through the door, they bring back omelets for this whole village. And of course, Jay Russell does describe the way she reads it. It's like she's very the way I'm hearing her. When you hear in the segment, what she narrates it. Yeah, it's obviously riff from like a script per se, but it seems like she's actually enjoying what she's actually talking about. Now she is listening to the series as the script writer. Yes, I don't know if she basically writes the dub for all these episodes, but I gotta say the dub work is actually really good. But that's only the first 4 episodes for you. So, yes, that's particularly it for particular of you. Next one, Shaman King. And if there's time, I will do 2 more episodes of the series. Okay? Next video. Bye.